It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Geek out!
Hey, welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
This week we're going to be talking Sean Lewis with a three-peat. You know, he's here for a third time, this time with Caitlin Yarksky to promote their new Image comic series, Coyotes, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th. We also talk a lot about RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, let's let them talk about it. And joining us this week, we've got Sean Lewis and Caitlin Yarksky. This is actually, Sean's pulling the hat trick this week. This is his third appearance on the show. You know, we had him on for the few a couple times, and now we've got him and his, co-creator and artist, Caitlin Yarksky, to talk about their new book, Coyotes, out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th. Guys, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So, if Saints comes from a lifetime of Catholic guilt and a love of X-Men, and The Few comes from a dream about prescient, pressures of fatherdom and that sort of thing, or becoming a parent, along with the current social climate, what place does Coyotes come from?
That's a good question. I guess part of it is conversations that I had with my wife, and research I had been doing for some plays. I suddenly was coming across a lot of stories about women disappearing in different locales around the world. And I stumbled across this story. It was on This American Life about a woman called the Blonde. So in Juarez, Mexico, there was these women who were going missing on a bus route. And then what happened is that a woman in a blonde wig started riding those buses and kind of like executing bus drivers that she thought were responsible for the women disappearing. And I just got so fascinated by it. It sounded so Tarantino-esque to me, like this kind of revenge, primal kind of attack happening. And so in the end, the book ended up coming out of just like my fascination with that story, and also like with a lot of the books, like a sampling of things that I'm just generally obsessed with, like samurais and revenge stories and great like female lead singers. And then I came across Caitlin's art. And when I found Caitlin's art, I was like, oh, this is a perfect mix for the beginning idea. I think at that point it was a really basic idea in my head. And then we just started throwing ideas a little bit back and forth, and I threw a script in her direction. And then once I saw the art, it really becomes kind of a playful back and forth of like, what could this book in this world really be?
I think when we were talking for the magazine a couple months ago, and I don't think this one made the print edition, you were saying, Sean, your wife saw Caitlin's art and was just like, oh, I would totally buy this book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was the first thing she said. When she looked at it, my wife doesn't really care about comic books at all. And I was just like flipping through portfolios, and I was just like, hey, what do you think of this? And she's like, oh, I'd buy that book. I was like, oh, because I'd write it? She was like, no, I just thought it was just a different book.
Put that on the cover.
I thought that was so funny. She was just like, oh, you wrote some of the things she's drawing. I was like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, Caitlin, what attracted you to this? You know, the script, the story. What was it about that really hooked you as an artist?
Oh boy, everything. It was just a great mashup of fantasy, fairy tale, really dark fairy tales, which is sort of like my jam, and mixing that up with revenge stories, and had a very like Coen Brothers or Guillermo del Toro feel to it, and so I was just really attracted to that. Kind of getting into that visceral, dark world is very fun.
There is kind of a kind of revenge element to the whole thing. You guys had invoked Tarantino, but there's bits of like, obviously, it's a lycanthropic tale, so there's shades of Underworld, there's shades of Sicario and all that, and this really is kind of. It feels timely. I don't know if it's because of the setting or because, human trafficking is the second largest shadow industry in the world, second only to drugs. was a lot of real world events and a lot of. I mean, how much did you kind of draw from creating the visual look to this to this horror tale?
Oh, visually, I guess I'll just I'll start by saying that I did a lot of referencing with Juarez, Mexico, where I think it was originally Sean was definitely playing with the idea of it being sort of there, but it just sort of turned into this. I don't know if it really is still there. It sort of has that feel though, so I kind of went with it, and it's a really kind of upsetting place to go visually when you're looking at references. And yeah, I don't know if I really answered your question, but it's definitely a different feel from the time. It feels like
Totally. Yeah. Now, Sean, in your previous two image series, Saints and The Few, the Saints opens up in the desert. The Few is basically opens up in kind of a bit of a desolate wasteland, almost like Cormac McCarthy's The Road. And Coyotes takes place also in the American Southwest. There's what is it about that environment, that a more desolate environment, that kind of draws you or appeals to you as a storyteller?
I wonder if part of it is just my background in theater, in the sense that, you start everything with an empty stage. Like, when I started taking classes in playwriting and acting, that was one of the big things that they sell you on is, if you have an empty stage, you can make anything happen. The moment you fill it with things, the audience's imagination starts to fill in holes that you may not want them to fill in, right? Like, they might start to go oh, that's a really crappy set. So I already dislike the show. Versus if there's something wide open, there's a lot of room for you to start to control the narrative right from the get-go and create tone. I think also just starts to play into, as you introduce characters in a place that's wide open and desolate, that there's automatically the stakes in my mind rise a bit because you realize that these are people who are working directly from nothing. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that I get drawn to it. I'm also kind of just fascinated with the landscapes of those areas. Some of the weirdest experiences of my own life, or trippiest ones, have been in either deep wilderness or deep southwestern desert. They are weird places to be alone or with a close friend for a long amount of time.
But right before San Diego Comic-Con this year, I had Image fly me out to California a couple days early. I rented a car and drove out to Joshua Tree, and basically had it wasn't a fear and loathing moment, there were no drugs, but it did feel kind of like this weird Vision Quest kind of thing. There's something
just about the heat and there being nothing around that. You can feel like you're on acid, some kind of psychedelic drug, without anything. That you're just kind of you start to see the waves of the heat in the air, and you're just is this real? What am I going through right now?
I will say of all the, we've talked about your other two books before. Of all of them, Coyotes is the most, and a lot of this comes from Caitlin's artwork as well. This is probably the most surreal, lush book of the three. A lot of it I think comes with there's a lot of beautiful Day of the Dead iconography that you guys kind of lean into. I think the very idea of having these, werewolves kind of run around, and just it's a very sanguineous book. There's a lot of blood going on, which is always awesome. But what was it kind of? You guys mentioned that you were kicking ideas around and bouncing ideas back and forth. How did that all kind of come about?
I mean, Caitlin's style in general is kind of lush and stunning. I think I had found a web comic of hers that had to do with a changeling girl, and the colors and the way it popped off the page, I was immediately drawn to that. And then, with each of the books that I work on, I'm really kind of fascinated with how the artist can actually open up new ways for me to explore narrative. With Saints, Ben's style had a level of humor mixed with this weird, Byzantine religious influence. So I was oh, I get to have wild humor, in a cartoon, mixed with really intense kind of Byzantine influenced structure to the drawings. And with Hayden, there was a sparseness and a harshness that actually allowed me to be really. I was really interested when I'm making a book that was quiet, and the harshness and sparseness of Hayden's line work made that possible. With this one, I kind of knew I wanted like a different kind of fairy tale or picture book. I just was thinking a lot about picture books I grew up with and like how fucked up a fairy tale this book could be. And I think the lushness of Caitlin's drawings, I was like, oh, this is an amazing way for me to play with like how narrative works in a book and how you can take a fairy tale, which I mean, there's so many comic books that have fairy tale influence, obviously, that I just was like, oh, how can I embrace that even more than I've seen on a regular basis? Which her art just really allows.
And then, yeah, Caitlin, to that point, I mean, what were you trying to lean into visually, you know, bouncing ideas with Sean, you know, again, evoking the kind of the Day of the Dead, these are, unlike a lot of werewolves, these werewolves are like pack animals. You know, werewolves, I mean, an American werewolf in London, there's only one. I guess there's the one in the prologue, but nobody cares about that one. Yeah. But
what's his story?
Yeah. Where's that prequel, Hollywood? Yeah. But yeah, what were you trying to lean into visually as you were kind of bouncing ideas with Sean? Like, what were some of your inspirations? Like, oh, you know, I can do this, or you know, I can make this really pop.
I guess, you know, I think that, you know, Sean's storytelling and the that kind of desolate feel to like landscape and the story and everything kind of really lent itself to that, you know, that sort of dark and kind of gritty style that I hadn't really, like, I kind of played with it before, but my stuff had been a little bit more whimsical before this, and then so, you know, I did some research on noirs, like I said before, but then it was more, you know, I was looking into Day of the Dead, looking into you know, just interesting architecture, interesting people, interesting, you know, cultures, and especially, obviously, you know, yeah, visually, as far as the werewolves are concerned, I confess I don't really think that most werewolves are visually scary or threatening. I mean, I can't really think of many that actually have felt really scary to me. So I kind of wanted them to just be big coyotes and wolves and the pack movement that I have throughout the pages is supposed to be sort of I was kind of going for like a flood, you know, desert, kind of having them come in as like these waves.
Kind of like a force of nature effect.
Right.
I'm trying to think what the most scary werewolf, honestly, and I don't even know if it necessarily qualifies. I think the most scary werewolf for me visually was Michael Jackson in the Thriller music video.
That scared the hell out of me.
That still scares the hell out of me.
I changed the
I'm in my 30s now. And
I remember.
Scares the hell
I remember I was like being babysat as a young lad, and it came on, and I couldn't find the remote control fast enough. I was like, get this off. Yeah.
You know, guys, I have Thriller on Laserdisc. We could watch
It's not happening. It's not happening.
Not even for Vincent Price.
Oh, I do love Vincent Price. Who doesn't love Vincent Price?
Misfits, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, again, Caitlin, you were mentioning you kind of have a more kind of whimsical art background. How has it been kind of crafting these action sequences that I guess I've only seen, you know, I've read the first 2 issues at this point, but the first issue is kind of a lot of people on the run. Issue 2 has got some really kinetic sequences as well, more action-based sequences. How has it been to kind of transition to that kind of art style?
Oh man, it's been really fun. It's been really challenging because I haven't really done anything quite like that before. There's been I've had a lot of people, a lot of friends and family doing ridiculous poses for me, and I have just thousands of reference photos from just people being gracious enough and letting me take pictures of doing crazy things. So that's been really kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll get a bunch of photos occasionally from Caitlin that'll be like pictures of her brother with like a sword in his hand.
It's the best
or
photo
my
reference.
Arresting my dad on the kitchen table.
That's hilarious.
Now, with this story, we've got a cop that's new to the city of Lost Girls. Obviously, he's quickly finds out he's in over his head. Is he going to kind of be our POV character for this story?
He's definitely a way to get us into all the mythology, because there's a lot of manipulations of werewolf myths. So between him and the scientists involved with Adlin, Officer Coffee is definitely, I think, a way for the audience to come in and learn the rules at the same time as he is. You know, like as he's learning things, we're learning things. So yeah, he sticks around for a bit. And there's also with each issue, one thing that I don't think anyone has seen yet is there's going to be these back matter pages we've been working on that Caitlin has made that are stunning, that are kind of like snapshot histories of all the main players. So like in one issue, you'll see the background of Coffee and how he ended up there. In another issue, you'll find out how the Duchess became the Duchess and the wolves and all the, like, so that you get a bit more of the life of the world and the backstory of the world. Because anybody who's read any of my things, I'm a pretty big fan of kind of throwing you in and just saying like, all right, shit's going down. Like, welcome. And so like Caitlin and I have been working on she's done this amazing black and white art for some of the back matter that is just really stunning.
I feel like I've mentioned this before, but yeah, all between the three books, there is a sense that the characters are on the run, or there's a sense of pursuit, and I think every single one of them also literally starts with the characters like they hit the ground running. Is that really to kind of like to draw people in and lend a sense of urgency?
I'm sure that, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, on a drama level, that's probably part of it. I think there's also just probably something fucked up with me to some degree that feels a bit panicked and on the run from the world on a regular basis. There's always kind of like, there's very often either children or young people who are orphaned or put in situations where they're orphaned as well, which I have no idea where that shows up constantly. You know, I think a lot of writers, you know, you're kind of working around the same themes on a regular basis. I think the running for me sometimes comes from just feeling generally kind of lost. Like the world feels a lot bigger and scarier to me the older I get, which is like the complete opposite of what I expected. Like I thought adulthood was when things were going to get like safer and easier. And instead I'm just like, no, more panic, more. Where's the panic going to come from today? Like, so I do think the running probably, that there's a bit of my own kind of neurosis built into that.
I mean, it works.
I'll make sure to stay really anxious.
It's like the Lethal Weapon 2 thing, right? You just start in the middle of the action.
Yes.
That's the way to do it.
Or RoboCop 2.
Yeah, RoboCop. Well, you know, yeah. RoboCop 2, yeah. But
and nothing's better than RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
So if we've learned nothing in the history of dramatic structure and literature, that's what we hold on to.
Yeah, RoboCop 2. Behave yourself! That movie is so out of control.
Like really anime too, you know. Some of the stuff like anime I've seen, you know, there's really really great stories out there. So like those are the ones that you just really invite you into the story and don't anything, and it's kind of more fun that way.
What would you say are some of the animes that you were really into and stuff, Caitlin? Where were some of your big artistic influences?
Oh, I mean, I've always loved like Cowboy Bebop and FLCL and like Evangelion, but you know, I love a lot of, you know, like visually, most stuff comes from like either like more Western animated stuff, you know, like Sylvain Chomet, you know, who did like Triplets of Belleville or like Don Bluth, you know, or you know, even Leica, you know, just like really awesome and stuff like that. And you know, of course, I'm a comic book artist for sure. So,
of course, Ralph Bakshi from doing what was it, the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah.
He was
and Fire and Ice.
And Fire and Ice. He was actually Becky Cloonan's like teacher.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like I didn't know that dude. First off, I didn't know he's still alive. Thanks for being still alive, Ralph. But no, he taught like he's yeah. he was Becky Cloonan's like art mentor through school.
Wow.
That's pretty sweet.
The more you know.
Yeah. Like I said, it introduced me to that movie Fire and Ice. which has Darkwolf, the greatest singular character in a movie I've ever seen, where it's basically like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Fire and Ice, but like it's look up Fire and Ice and the character Darkwolf, because it's basically like a more adult oriented He-Man episode, which is like the best way I can describe it. It's like the rotoscoping, you know, but it's like this guy gets thrown in the middle of this shitstorm, and
As you do.
You lethal weapon to it, and
RoboCop
to it. Sorry. And anyway, but Darkwolf's this guy. He's like wearing like a panther head, and he runs around and just kicks the shit out of everyone. So.
Yeah, I'm looking at pictures of him right now. His helmet is amazing.
Isn't he a great looking character? Like, it's so simple, but he's got like the green eyes, and he's got like his voice is like this like perfect like Batman voice almost. He's just like, come on, let's, he didn't say let's fuck shit up, but like it's just like a PG. But there's a there's a character in it where like it's sources, swords and sandals, swords and sorcery stuff, and a character like a witch dies. But then her corpse comes back to life as like a skeleton and like gives like one more like final warning and then like disintegrates. It's like really cool. Like it is like that, like that Rotos, like the animated Lord of the Rings, the same kind of style. But like the animation, it just like totally blew me away. It was really freaking cool.
It reminds me of like heavy metal a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Now with Saints, one of the overarching themes was really kind of finding your place in the world. With the few, it was really redemption, and I guess finding your place in the world too, albeit a more fucked up, like dystopian future world. But also the nature of like finding responsibility through parenting. What would you say are some of the overarching themes in Coyotes?
I mean, I think one of the big things is how do we handle loss. I think a lot of what I'm exploring with Red is when you lose when you're that young and you're losing everything, like how do you trust anyone? Like how do you create relationships when you're untethered that early? I think I'm really fascinated in the way that we treat disenfranchised people in this book. Like how communities are formed. The fact that this group of women feel endangered, and no one is helping them, so how they come together. Weirdly, like I used to have I'm from New York originally, so I used to and I grew up really interested in both like punk rock and hip hop, and I would get really fascinated in gang culture and read articles about it and books, and had done some theater projects on it. And it was always amazing to me how like almost all the gangs had started out of the feeling of that there was no protection where they were, that there was complete lawlessness. So they basically were like becoming their own army or police force, community by community. So I think like how communities are made and who we pledge allegiance to and why is something that I'm interested in. It's also something that runs through Saints and the Few a lot, is like how families get kind of built and made. I don't know about you guys, but I know for myself, like the way I put together my closest friends and what a family means to me is probably like astronomically different than what it meant to my grandparents. Where it's like this weird smattering of friends and acquaintances, and like who gets really close to me that I would say is family is so different than I think what they grew up with.
Sure. Not the traditional WASPy definition.
Yeah, that kind of nuclear family idea of like we all grow up next to each other and like buy houses right next to each other. I don't know. I don't know that world. I know a lot more of like I'm in a place where I feel completely new and vulnerable and I don't know what to do, and you seem as lost as me, so you are now my best friend. So like we're stuck together, just so you know. I think that feels more real to my experience, at least.
It's also, I feel like, and this could come from both your theater background and your art background, Caitlin. I feel like that's kind of like the collaborative process in a way. Like we both have this vision. It's a dangerous, like, competitive, cutthroat world out there. Let's make something new.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Caitlin's been pretty amazing to roll with this. We've been working on this for a while, so like, I mean, she's shown an incredible amount of faith. I think in this project, because we've been probably working on it for almost like 2 years at this point.
Oh wow! So with that much lead time, like, was there a lot of kind of pre-production, for lack of a better term, or just kind of mapping out the world and where the story would go?
I think, I mean, not to speak for Caitlin, but I think a big part of it was, I think both of us kept getting better at what we do as we were working on it. Like, I was becoming better at what it meant to write a comic book. And I think Caitlin was coming from video games. I was coming from theater. I basically started this right around the same time that Saints was happening. And so, like, I learned so much during Saints. And I think Caitlin started getting a lot of commissions and projects in comic books, and she was learning a lot I think it started to become, I think that was a big part of it. Like, we did a whole first issue that we then, like, scrapped and redid from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was worth it. It was good. I think it was a good choice. And,
Yeah, I love I will say I so love the book that we've come to.
Yeah.
It's been hard, but I think I look at it and I'm like, holy shit, we made this.
Yeah, it was sort of like a formative time for both of us, for sure. Like, I had just kind of broken into the comic book world and was really excited about it, but, kind of fumbling my way through, it felt like. And Sean was patient enough to let me kind of develop and change and learn. And, everybody kind of, that's sort of the cliche, right? You do look at an issue and then you want to go back and redo it, but I really, really wanted to go back and redo it.
How would you describe your collaborative process now? 2 years. I mean, it's wild. Like 2 years before the first issue even hits stands. But how would you describe your collaborative process now after working on this book for so long?
I feel like it's turned into like a really cool friendship. Like, we kind of just hit each other up on like email or Facebook, and it'll be like, hey, Caitlin will be like, I had an idea about coffee. Like, what if he has this? Or in that scene, like, do you think this would happen? And like, we'll just kind of blast it back and forth. And I mean, a lot of times what'll happen is I'll write up a draft of the story and send it to Caitlin. Caitlin will give me notes or questions. The questions are always the most helpful. Like, there's times when Caitlin will just be like, what is he talking about here? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I don't have no idea. I have no idea what he's talking about. I just think there's like a cool trust, and I think it's become fun in a way that sometimes collaborations you can forget to have.
Yeah, I agree. It's the most fun kind of collaboration. Just kind of go back and forth with each other. And then we'll send other notes. I'm like, what do you think about this? Like, when Sean, you were like, well, what if we have the backstory that we, put in the back of each issue? And I was like, I think that's an awesome idea. And of course, it's like, 6 pages for an issue. But I was like, I don't care. It's really cool. And, it's just, it's fun to have that kind of.
I mean, it's always just good when you both are in total agreement. Like, I don't know what it's like because I haven't been in these types of projects at this point in my career, but like, it still feels like we're both pretty much in love with the book and trying to figure out how to make the coolest overall experience for the reader at all times. So at any point, we're like, Caitlin will be like, I'll fall in love with a cover, and Caitlin will be like, so I got rid of that cover. Like, I completely on the cover. But invariably, I know that what she's going to hand in next, it's like, oh no, you're right. Like, you're totally right. This is a better cover. Or I'll say things like, you know what? I wrote up this backstory for Coffee, and I think we can give it to the audience. And we just kind of like throw those things. I'd say there's just a really true ownership between both of us.
That's cool. So, Sean, you may remember, and Caitlin, this is your first time into the madness that is Geek Out.
The RoboCop 2 podcast.
The RoboCop 2 the RoboCop Come Thriller podcast.
I was trying to remember, like, the beginning of RoboCop 2 is fucking awesome. Like, that's
the best part.
Where
not where he fights a character named RoboCop 2.
No. Where, like, those guys, it was like a Nitro or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, they see RoboCop coming in this squad car, and they just, like, fuck him. They just, like, they blow him up. And the car, like, flies all over the place. And anyone who would go, I don't know why anyone wouldn't know RoboCop's gonna be okay because he's RoboCop, but he just like shoots
the beginning of his movie.
He just shoots a hole out of the top and gets out like he's fine, and just eliminates all of them in like that. Like, Peter Weller doesn't get enough credit for how gracefully he moves in that hulking outfit. Yeah. Like, it is like, I always joked it was like the like beautiful like violent ballet movements with him, the way he would move.
He's like a dancer, yeah.
But yeah, just watch the beginning of RoboCop 2, people. That's the best.
But to get back to my question,
sorry. Sorry.
We get
What's
sidetracked.
your favorite scene
Yeah.
from RoboCop 2?
Is it when the guy pulls his own face off?
Yeah. That messed me up as a kid.
Yeah.
But anyway, just like the Thriller music video, it all comes full circle. Anyway, what are you guys currently geeking out over?
Oh, Caitlin, you want to take this first?
Oh boy. Well, it's not exactly super new, but I've been loving Fiona Staples and Brian K. Vaughan's saga. Obviously, it's like amazing. But yeah, what am I thinking of right now?
Any music things, movie things?
Oh my God, I've been obsessed with Hamilton for the last 2 years, but who hasn't?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I just think it's amazing. Let's see. There was a new movie that just came out that I thought was incredible, called Luke. Did you guys see that?
Oh. Yeah, it's the Korean film, right?
Yeah, it was totally incredible, and I hope it goes out in wider theaters, because it was while I was still living in New York, so I got to see it there, but yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Have you guys seen the new It yet?
No.
I want to.
It's
Soon, I think.
It's incredible.
Is it?
Yeah, man.
Closer to the book version, right?
For the most part, I mean, they're I think people who've read the book, there are certain like direct things pulled from it, but they do a good job of adapting what they can of that brick, like that tome,
Yeah.
because there's so much.
I like Stephen King, but It doesn't have to be over 1,000 pages.
There's so much going on, but they do a really good job of kind of getting the feel of the Losers Club. The Losers Club is like perfectly cast. Like, I mean, you will fall in love with the Losers Club. Like, they do such a good job of making it that coming of age story, and then happening to have Pennywise the dancing clown just eviscerating people. So it's all performances all around. I mean, top notch stuff. Really, really good.
I'll have to see. I've been on the fence a little bit about it because I always get a little bit worried about how that stuff will come out. I'll have to check it out.
That movie definitely, like, I think I read it in middle school or something. I would keep the light on at night, How scary it was.
Yeah. God, I mean, if I'm a really slow reader. Like, I'm doing that on Audible right now. And I think
Unabridged.
if anyone's been listening to this podcast, I've been listening to that book on Audible for the past like year. It's 44 hours long, and God bless Steven Weber of Wings fame, because he reads it, and it's the most amazing performance you'll ever hear on an audiobook. Like, he is like astoundingly good, but I'm very easily.
Every time you mention Wings, I think you're talking about the Paul McCartney group.
Yeah, Steven Weber was the keyboardist in Wings for a bit.
And backup vocals.
Yes, he was the backup vocalist on
Back to the Egg.
Back to the Egg, their doomed final album. But I mean, yeah, the book is like it's very intense. I don't know how somebody is able to do something like that.
I mean, that's why they're
Like,
splitting
it's
into
just-
two films.
Yeah, they're taking their time, which is good with it. They're not rushing it into one entire movie.
Yeah. But Sean, what you geeking out over?
I've been really digging the dregs from Black Mask. I think that's been cool. And I saw Good Time, and that movie was fucking amazing. I really loved Good Time.
Who? Forgive my ignorance, but who does the film?
I'm sorry. Good Time was with the Safdie brothers, and it stars Robert Pattinson. It's like an old school. They shot as like an old school 80 crime thriller.
Oh, I've heard about that actually. Yeah.
It was great, and it's got like this strange, like really strange, off-kilter, like John Carpenter type synth score throughout the whole movie. So you're just kind of like really uncomfortable constantly. And Robert Pattinson, I haven't seen him in anything because I never saw Twilight. But he's amazing in this movie. Like, he's great. I don't know if he's been good in anything else, but I was kind of shocked.
He'll always be my Cedric Diggory. That's all I got, guys.
I got nothing.
It's either that or the Nicholas Sparks movie he was in.
Oh God, yeah, he was in one of those too.
Was he?
Yeah, he was.
Everybody's in a Nicholas Sparks movie. I'm sure I'm probably in a Nicholas
Is
Sparks.
Peter Weller in a Nicholas Sparks movie?
Yeah, Nicholas Sparks RoboCop 2.
Oh, Nicholas Sparks is RoboCop 2. nothing I'd rather do.
Oh, we're out of our minds this week.
You just think it was written by Frank Miller.
Yeah. But for real though, if you guys haven't read like they released the original Frank Miller script of RoboCop 2 and 3 in comic book form. It's fucking awesome. Really, really good. It's a very different than the movies we get.
Yeah.
For 2 and 3. I mean, he gets
Especially
killed.
3.
He gets killed in 2, but yeah. 3. Yeah. No, not 3. No.
There's actually something coming out soon that I really hope is awesome, but I can't tell yet. It's the new Dark Crystal. It's like,
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite movies of all time.
I had no idea there was a new Dark Crystal. I love Dark Crystal.
Would you take Dark Crystal over Labyrinth?
Me? Oh, I don't know. That's a tough one. They're kind of both in the same. Yeah, I don't think that's something I can.
These are the hardball questions you get from Geek Out.
Too hot.
I mean, it's Bowie. Bowie puts it over. Yeah.
But Brian Froud is one of my favorite artists ever. I don't know.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Well,
Oh, he did do Labyrinth too, so.
It's a win-win.
yeah. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. Especially Jim Henson. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Well, you guys got anything else you want to plug? But while we got you on,
Just buy Coyotes. I think it'll be worth your time for sure. And thanks again for giving us the time to talk about it.
yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, and again, in addition to Coyotes out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th, there's also both the trade collections of Saints and the Few. And Caitlin, do you have any other, anything else out that you want to promote?
No, this is it.
This is it. All right. Again, November 8th, Coyotes #1. If you're looking for a blood-soaked revenge romp, this is it.
A revenge. I love that. I love a revenge romp.
It's about
Sam's been bringing that back, man.
Put that
He
on
definitely has.
put that on the cover. A
That's
revenge
good. That's
romp.
good. That might make its way at least on the trades.
Woo! There you go.
I try to go for that alliteration, and I just love romp.
Alliteration and romp.
No,
you got
romp's a great word. It's
Yeah.
great.
Well, guys, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
RoboCop 2.
RoboCop 2.
In that movie, I think I mentioned as much in the interview, the antagonist is a character named RoboCop, at least by the fucking company Omni. RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
RoboCop fights a character named RoboCop 2 at the end of that film.
Yeah. It's even weirder in 3 when he fights RoboCop 3.
And then the TV series where he
Fights RoboCop the TV series.
yeah. That's why it only lasted a season.
Something
No,
like that.
no, it lasted like 3 seasons.
I watched
Shit.
some of it. I never
Much to everyone's surprise.
Yeah, they used to have it on Netflix like way back.
I think they for a long time they had the series on Netflix, and then they dropped it down to just the premieres and finales because those were like quote unquote movie quality.
Yeah.
Probably like RoboCop 3 movie quality.
Yeah.
Barely. The same actor that played RoboCop in RoboCop 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Because what's his name?
Peter Weller.
Peter Weller didn't want to come back.
Yeah. Fuck this shit.
He didn't want a Batman Returns.
Yeah.
Even
Or
though
Dark Knight
RoboCop
Returns.
returns.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, this is the first episode we've recorded since New York Comic Con.
Woo!
It's been a whole.
A hole.
It's been a hole. I honestly that con wears me out. No, I loved that con, and this was my favorite time working it, and the 3 times I've done it. But
Doing your own three-peat.
yeah, but it's exhausting as hell.
Yeah.
It wears you out. A lot of that's my own fault. I was out until like 2 on Friday and Saturday
And you do spend the entire day
at the booth. Yeah. I
Talking
gotta
to those nerds.
Well, I also gotta walk Artist Alley a couple times, which is now a lot more convenient to get to.
But so my takeaway, if I may jump in, so I think this year they kind of figured out a formula, not necessarily the formula, but a good formula in terms of like it never felt bloated, like overly crowded.
Yeah.
Because I think they did a good job of spacing where the panels were and when the panels were, and utilizing the off-site places for some of those panels. Like I saw
the Hammerstein.
Yeah, I saw a couple panels at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and I think they did a good job of wrangling like when and where people were going to be, like in the Javits Center versus not in the Javits Center. The only place that was not privy to such advances was Artist Alley. Artist Alley was the only place that I walked through where I was like, fuck, I can't move.
Yeah, I would always go either in the beginning of the day or towards the end of the day. And usually not the beginning of the day, because that's when like people are like, oh, I need to see Todd McFarlane. And it's like, all right, of course. Yes, you do. He still created Spawn.
Still?
Yeah, he was very nice. He was in good spirits at the show. Every time I've met Todd, he's been nice. And I always segue to baseball because I figure everyone's talking fucking Spawn and Venom all day. So I'm like, let's talk about your other passions. Baseball, Todd. Yeah, but no, it was a lot of fun.
Walk up to him and you're like, if you build it,
they will come.
He's like,
big Diamondbacks fan, that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. Thanks again to Image for not flying, but training me up, and yeah. I some of our guys like from the DC area took planes, and I was like,
why?
Yeah, because they were in and out of like LaGuardia.
Ugh.
And I was like, dude.
I mean, I get it. Like it only takes you like 30 minutes to get there, whatever the time is. But like, yeah, before you even unclasp your seatbelt, you have to clasp it again because you're landing.
Yeah.
But like, fucking.
I think they just didn't know better.
Yeah. I would totally. I mean, I am the type of person that would take the train regardless. But like, yeah, if my two options to go to New York were plane or train.
Yeah. I mean,
unless I had to be there right away.
It drops you right off in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right there, blocks from the convention center.
Speaking of transportation there, this year, I did not take a train because I don't have that kind of money, because train ticket is about the same as a plane ticket. But I did take a Greyhound bus, and I will say I am amazed. Out of all the buses that I've taken to get to and from New York, Greyhound has been the most comfortable.
I feel like they really stepped up to their game after like Megabus and Bolt Bus were like, yo, we're here too.
Yeah. Megabus and Bolt Bus give you the legroom that you appreciate in the worst seats in an airplane, which for me are all the seats. Even the exit row sucks. So stop suggesting that I sit in that row. It's also the first row that's sold out. But yeah, so I sat down in my Greyhound and I was like, is this what normal sized people feel like when they sit in a chair? I'm moving my legs left and right, and I'm not getting chafed from the carpet, that lines the seat in front of me. I was like, this is glorious. So, Greyhound, you have my business. It was so. And now that I'm talking about Greyhound, I feel like I need to share an anecdote about the trip beyond just my legroom. Friend of the show, Ken, was the one who was setting up the travel arrangements, and he somehow managed to. I think I didn't get the full story, and he was already upset, so I didn't want to pry and be like, "How'd you fuck up? How'd you fuck up?" I didn't want to be that guy. I'm pretty sure it's 100% not his fault as well. But so somehow in setting up the ride there, it was me, him, and his girlfriend Maddie, and somehow I think he had to call and change something. Whatever. He had to call and change something, and in so doing, we got split into two different buses, because there were two buses leaving at the exact same time that day to come up to New York. I somehow got put on the express bus, or I think I stayed on the express bus, and they got put on the commuter bus, which ended up, the guy that was driving that bus was a speed demon, and we got to New York at almost the exact same time, even though they were supposed to be there like an hour later. But like the entire time, Ken's just like, fucking, we're stopping at Baltimore, we're stopping in this place. I can't stand it. So thanks, Ken, for putting me on the express bus. I had an extra 20 minutes to walk around and find the fastest route to get to the hotel, but could not check in because I did not have the proper credentials.
Because it was in his name.
Yes. But it was the Yotel again, a fun place. I was smart and brought a bed pad with me this time because the Yotel's beds are, glorified futon mattresses. It's a nice hotel, but I need more padding on my bed.
I went to a ramen place right down the street from to Yotel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. The Ivan Ramen.
Oh, yeah. That crazy son of a bitch.
I'm amazed that Ken didn't try to drag us all.
Well, did he take you to Curry?
No. the entire way up, or not the entire way up because we were split into different buses, but like while there, Maddie was great. She started it and I just piggybacked on top of it. But like she was like we were making fun of Ken for Go Curry because he's always talking about it, much like how I'm always talking to them about how I used to live in New York. So they make fun of me for that. So it felt good to kind of be like, oh, Go Curry, I've heard of that place. Huh, who keeps talking about that? Someone keeps talking about it. Someone won't shut the fuck up about it. Yeah, so. But no, we did not go.
Oh, okay.
I spent most of my time with my local friends, actually.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I spent more money at bars in New York than I did at the convention.
I spent a lot of money. I went to parties with open bars, but I also went to parties with not open bars.
Yeah.
And staying out late and stuff, that that shit adds up.
Yeah.
New York bar prices.
Yeah. I had a really surprisingly good sleep schedule for a convention.
I was hitting my call times,
Yeah.
The only day
that's the most important part.
Yeah, the only day I struggled was Sunday because there was something going around the Image booth. Our friend of the show, Corey, who's just on the Superman episode or series, she had come down with something, and by the end of the weekend I started to feel a little weak on my feet too. Yeah, so I'm just kind of starting to kick that now.
I was getting worried because I was starting to feel something coming on Saturday night, and I was like, no. But luckily, that was all it was. It was just that inkling. There was nothing that came to fruition, if I may.
No, I mean it's a good show. I always dig that.
It's one of my favorite shows to go to mostly because I get to see so many of my friends from back when I used to live in New York. And I got propositioned by one of the Funko guys to work their booth because apparently they have a lot of trouble getting people to come all the way to New York from California.
Oh, I believe it. And they also and the Funko guy is a big VA wrestling guy, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And not to mention, with the kind of traffic that the Funko booth sees, you would be good,
right?
Yeah.
Be like, what?
Yeah.
You've already been here for your one con exclusive.
Yeah,
Back the fuck off.
You don't get another Gwen Pool.
Yeah.
Pow.
You don't get another Scrooge McDuck.
Wasn't was there one of their exclusives this year? The first appearance Superman. I thought I saw that somewhere.
I have no idea.
I didn't swing, but I
saw
their booth. But
I mean, I saw some on Twitter.
I don't even bother trying.
Oh, it's like a carcass by the end, like the first hour. I mean, it's just picked clean.
Yeah.
You see everyone doing the walk run to get there.
That booth is in just as high demand as most of the panels, and you have to like get a reservation. There's no just randomly walking through. You have to be let in, which is nice because then it's not like a madhouse while you're in there, shopping around. There's only like 10 people at a time. But like the first day that I was there at the convention was Friday, and I woke up early and I was like, I'm going to go to the con. They haven't even opened doors yet. I'm going to go to the con, see what's up. I was let in through the gates, and then we were like hanging out in the open area up front. It's like a driveway kind of thing before they let open the doors. And I feel like I was pretty early on in the mass of people that were let in. by the time I made it to the show floor, there was already a huge line for the Funko booth.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always
Don't get it. They're
It's
cute, but like
they're not like kill each other cute
yeah, they're not Tickle Me Elmos.
Furbies.
Yeah.
Beanie Babies. No, I mean it was
They're definitely not Beanie Babies.
Yeah, I did see Kingsman 2 while I was up there.
Yeah.
It was fine. It's fine. The action sequences are good.
Yeah.
Nobody in the cast acts poorly, but between the action sequences, it feels like there's something missing. Like it's very uninspired connective tissue. But I had a good time. You know, it was an entertaining film.
I think I can see where you're coming with that, and I think the big thing is that there's nothing really new put into this movie. It's a lot of
The plot's weaker.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't necessarily go to a Kingsman movie for the
Yeah.
plot,
Right.
but it's handled. I would much rather have Richmond Valentine
Yeah.
played by Samuel Jackson than Poppy Adams.
He was a lot more entertaining.
Yeah.
I will agree with that.
The
but
fine
like
cuisine with the McDonald's and everything. Sophia Boutella with the blade feet.
Yeah, you didn't have a cool blade feet.
You had a metal hand man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had a Metallo.
Yeah. You had two robot dogs named
Yeah.
Benny and Jet.
Yeah. Benny.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. But yeah, it was like they took the first movie and they were like, "Here's all the things you liked. Here they are again. We're not even gonna sprinkle on any condiments." I loved it. You can listen to our episode last week, 2 weeks ago. I don't even remember when we recorded
It
it.
was like 3 years ago.
Yeah. Jake and I both loved it, but I can totally see where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, I mean it's one of those
Yeah.
movies where like people would ask me about it. I was like, "Did you like the first one?" They're like, "I'm like, then don't go see the second one."
Yeah.
It's bigger, dumber, and longer than the first one. You know,
I feel I aspire to have a sequel where the tagline is bigger, longer, dumber.
But no, yeah, I mean, you know, it's those action set pieces, especially in the first and third act, are fun as hell.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, I guess I think one of the big things is like that not annoyed me because like with Kingsman, it's very hard for me to like get knocked out of reality with that movie because it's so far fetched. But
I
like,
never
the one thing that took it like I was like, come on, man, is the head wound treatment.
Oh,
where I mean that
surprisingly, I was like, all right.
That gets to the point where it's like, where is
consequence?
No, where's the danger in any of this
Yeah.
now? Where if like a head wound is like, oh, you're good. Here, put on this like ice pack thing and wake up to Halle Berry showing you a picture and being like, my fucking life. Oh, okay, I remember everything now. Let's go. But yeah, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah,
we all had fun.
Yeah, again, it's a good time at the movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just empty calories.
Yeah,
you know,
the best calories.
usually.
Speaking of movies, saw a little film called Blade Runner 2049, and I loved it. It's much. Well, I really don't want to associate it too hard with Mother, but in the same vein of art school, film school gratification, I felt very fulfilled with the beauty of the cinematography and the set design and all the other artsy fartsy aspects of it, that I was like, yes, just wash it over me like a Pacific wave.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, huge caveat, make sure you're well rested before going to see the movie, not because it's a thrill ride, but because of the opposite. It is intentionally a very slow, methodical almost, slowly paced movie. Well paced. I think the story that's there, the narrative that's weaved through it, is designed for such a slow pace, but it's slow, and the score is toned so low. It's almost like the brown note through the entire movie.
You're shitting your pants.
Yeah, and
Ryan Gosling.
I was like, I feel like I'm being swaddled by a heated blanket.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my little nightcap on, and Ryan Gosling's monotone delivery of everything is like someone reading me a bedtime story. Like I was like, all I need is to be in like a D-box seat that's rocking me back and forth like I'm in a cradle, and I'm gonna fall asleep. And I loved the movie, and I was in danger of falling asleep. There was a dude like 10 seats down from me who did fall asleep halfway through it.
I'm definitely gonna fall asleep during this.
Yeah,
movie.
no, I
mean, that's just gonna happen.
Your dad will for sure. Like, you know, go in knowing full well that there's a strong chance that you will fall asleep, not because it's bad, but just because it is a cure for insomnia.
That's a good tagline.
Yeah, right. That aside, loved it. I thought it was a great, like stylistic, you know, cousin to the original movie. It
Does it feel like a sequel?
it feels like something that was just happened to be in the same universe, and then like it has very strong ties to the original movie, but not a direct sequel. Like it doesn't just pick up with Harrison Ford and what's her name, the female lead from the first one,
Rachel?
Sean Young?
Yeah, yes. It doesn't just pick up with them on the run or anything. Like you don't see Harrison Ford until the third act. But like it's, you know, they ultimately are like a big part of the story because just, you know, their exploits in the first movie, and more specifically in between the two movies, have huge implications for the future of replicants. After I watched it, I did go back and watch the What Culture. They started a new series now that they only have like half their people on staff. They started a new series where like big movies, they do like a half-hour dissertation of it. They did the same thing with Mother, which is where I've figured out, or where I learned what the intention of the symbolism of
I like symbology better.
It was a Boondock Saints reference. But I mean, the symbology is the study of symbols. So if you wanted to be Tom Hanks in the Da Vinci Code movies, that's where you're going. But symbolism, you know, it was through watching the What Culture video about it. But like, so they had a half-hour discussion about Blade Runner, and I've completely forgotten where I was going with it. But like, I rewatched it, and right now I know. Jared Leto does a great job in the movie. He acts the hell out of that character. But like, it wasn't until I was watching that What Culture video that I thought back, and I was like, he was kind of pointless to the plot, because like that was one of the things that they brought up, and I was like you could have easily cut him out to make the movie just 2 hours long, or like, you know, an hour 45 or something like that, to make it a lot more watchable for like the quote unquote general public, or the popcorn audience, you know, the people that are just there to see, you know, a movie, an action movie. You know, I feel like you could have worked around or rewritten it so that you didn't need Jared Leto's character. But unlike movies like Suicide Squad, where you're just like, I fucking hate him in this movie, regardless of how you felt about the rest of the movie. He does a fine job. Ryan Gosling does a fine job, which is a big thing for me to say, because I usually don't like Ryan Gosling that much. And in fact, I went into this movie with very low expectations, partially just because Ryan Gosling was in it. And I was like, fuck Ryan Gosling. He's only good in The Nice Guys, and that's it. So now I have two movies that he's good in.
You are wrong.
If you say Drive.
Lars and the Real Girl. That's one of the weirdest fucking movies of all time. It's so good.
I have not seen it. So I'm not wrong. I'm just misinformed.
You're misinformed. You're stupidly misinformed.
Yeah.
Your symbology.
But it is beautiful. Yeah. It I feel like it had the same what's the word for like when you're doing a school essay and like they give you the prompt, your thesis. It had like the same thesis statement that like movies like Ghost in the Shell had, or Ex Machina, to a certain degree, of just like, you know, like what constitutes life, what constitutes a soul, and stuff like that. And like it was thought provoking in all the ways that I feel like the original movie was trying to be, but like for whatever reason I didn't get the first couple dozen times that I watched it until like I read the book to like, you know, kind of tie in, and then like I started to kind of get it because Philip K. Dick kind of hand feeds you a little bit better than Ridley Scott does, or at least for me. But like this movie, like I was like, I don't know if I was just in the perfect mindset or like I'm just, you know, older and more aware of my mortality than I was with the first movie. But I was just like, yes, this is what Ghost in the Shell wanted to be.
First time I saw the original Blade Runner, I fucking hated it.
Same.
Yeah. I totally understand it. You probably also watched one of the terrible cuts of it too.
I saw the theatrical version.
Yeah, it's not the worst cut, or is?
It's the one with the voiceover.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is the worst cut.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
Yeah, I own the final cut.
I own all 5 because the Blu-ray came with all 5, and also I have the international. I have the international cut on Laserdisc because that was the Criterion collection did the international, which I think got rid of the voiceover and has a little bit more violence than the theatrical cut. I have seen the movie with the voiceover, and I'm just like,
I've heard it, but the first time I saw it was the director's cut, and I was like, this sucks. And then years later, I watched it again. I was like, and then I saw the final cut in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Me and best good friend Kev went to go see it. We drove it to I don't know where, and that was awesome. Seeing it on the big screen.
Oddly enough, the first movie, for the longest time, even now, is still just one of those movies where I'm like, I love it because it looks so good, but like, having read the book aside, like I still don't really know what's going on in that movie. And like I didn't see the whole is Deckard a replicant, is he not thing until someone said that. And like basically it wasn't until someone was like, well, in the book he clearly isn't, but in the movie Ridley Scott, depending on which version you watch, you know, he clearly is or clearly isn't. And I was just like, is he? I didn't even know that was a question. So
Yeah.
Regardless, or if you ignore Ridley Scott being like, oh yeah, I always felt like he was. If you ignore that and leave it still kind of up in the air, one nice thing that I think about the 2049 is that it kind of has that same kind of like, it never like definitively answers any like specific question like that. In a way that I liked. I like when done right. I enjoy an open-ended ending. Not so much like the. I'm sure plenty of people will like complain like, oh, it's clearly open for a sequel. It's like, well, no, it's just an open-ended narrative. Like it leaves you asking questions, and you know, like the sometimes it's okay to not have complete like 100% closure.
Spoon feeding.
Yeah. Read a Philip K. Dick book.
Read some Dick.
Yeah.
You getting anything, Jake?
No,
It's been the James Bond rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. I unfortunately did not go to New York Comic Con this year. I was busy boy at work, and the kitchen's being redone, and cat sitting. It was just a very busy week of not having fun in New York Comic Con, and I decided to start the rabbit hole of reading all the James Bond, Ian Fleming work. I did Thunderball like a long time ago, and I started Casino Royale. But when I was reading Bond when I was really young, I was just bored, and I was like, half this book's in French. No, it's not. But I mean, there's all a lot of like that, bullshit. And I was like, oh well, I'll have someone read it to me instead. And yeah, I've been doing the Audible because. Driving to and from work, it makes the ride go a little faster. So I knocked out Casino Royale a couple days ago and really enjoyed that. I mean, that movie is, clearly the most faithful adaptation of Ian Fleming's Bond work. I mean, it
for a while, certainly in a long time. You look at some that say like Dr. No. Dr. No's pretty faithful. From Russia with Love's pretty faithful.
Yeah, I mean, but like just the reading along with this book, you're like, that. I mean, again. There's a lot of more added to the movie for obvious reasons because all of his books are pretty short.
Yes.
So that's been fun too because you're knocking them out pretty quick.
In contrast to it.
Yeah, I stopped again. Sorry guys. Well, we'll pick that up in a couple of years again.
Finish it in the comments.
I finally returned it to Audible because I was like, I'm not going to
Did you
finish
Yeah,
this.
Nice.
Give me a credit so I can read another book.
And yeah, I'm on Live and Let Die right now. I mean, there's a lot of that book that's very hard to listen to because it's 1950s and it's a British man describing Harlem. But the Bond stuff, like getting into Bond's head, and the action and dealing more with the plot and getting away from some of that really awful, awkward stuff is really good. I'm really enjoying the book on that front. You know, not the
Dated racism.
dated racism. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. I don't think any of it is malicious, but it is
Just a product of its time.
product of its time, and it doesn't age well. Let's put it that way. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay. But I think the book, though, the pacing and the action of it, and the characters and Bond, I think, you know, this is his second outing of writing Bond, and I think he's really strong in this book. And Live and Let Die, and this is one that, you know, unlike, you know, Casino Royale, it takes chunks from other movies, take chunks from other stuff from the plot point, and it is very different. I mean, there's characters that are dead already very early on that survive until the third act of the movie, and that's kind of fun too because it helps you kind of don't exactly know what's going on, and I've been enjoying the actors who have been reading the books. The actor who plays Bill Tanner is reading Live and Let Die, and the guy who plays the Beast in New Beauty and the Beast reads Casino Royale. And at the end, they have an interview with him. They talk about, you know, like, what were you thinking of? You know, where there's a certain character you're trying to, you know, Bond you're trying to betray, and you know,
What were you thinking?
yeah, the Beast himself was like, no, you know, he has more of a Roger Moore kind of like that. Because you know, Moore I think is the
Dicks up.
yeah, Moore is the Moore I think is the easiest Bond to impersonate in terms of kind of the high class, you know, Bond, James Bond, you know, that kind of like very, you know, yeah, high class thing. And so he said that was something he tried to not do as much because he wanted to, you know, you're playing all different kind of characters.
I always see literary Bond as probably closest to Timothy Dalton.
Oh, I mean,
That's what the professionals say, right?
I mean,
The experts.
yeah, I mean, reading Casino Royale, you're like, I mean, you know, Craig has the blunt instrument down perfectly, but I think look, the longer face, the more widow's
haunted,
peak,
yeah.
and you know, every character describes Bond with sad eyes, every single one when they talk about him, and yeah, I mean that, you know, and it's not like gleeful so far in the book when he kills somebody, but it is very necessary, and he has zero problem killing. And I think the reason that is, it's very simple why Timothy Dalton is the closest to the Bond, because he took that role like it was Shakespeare, where he took the books, he had them on set, he read them, and he's like, oh, okay, this is how I play Bond. And I don't think the actors before that did that or really cared to do that. And that's fine. I mean, like I said, Christopher Reeve never read a Superman comic book before playing Superman. You get great performances, but I think that is why reading these books and reading the comic books as well, you get, and that's why I enjoy the Timothy Dalton performance, because it feels like an extended performance of his reading these. Now, granted, I don't necessarily have him all the time in my head when I'm like listening to him or reading it, but he definitely, like you said, is the closest, because it is, he's just a cold-hearted son of a bitch, and that to me is,
I know God, son of a bitch.
he's the he's the most cold-hearted son of a bitch there ever was. And I think when Ian Fleming unleashes that, it's really a fascinating read.
Yeah,
because he is one-track mind, you know, a lot of the times. And if you get in his way, he's going to strangle you, he's going to shoot you, he's going to throw you down a fucking staircase.
yeah.
But you know, and Fleming's background, you know, in World War II, dealing with espionage and spy work and everything, it's there's just really nice little elements. And Live and Let Die so far, I've really enjoyed more of the spy stuff going on, where he has this great conversation with M, where they talk about the flu and how sick somebody is, and that's if they're dead or not, and how injured he is. And there's one line that he has with M that like stunned me, where M he calls in, you know, MI6 blah blah blah, but it's not MI6. It's to, you know, get, you know, a fake line in, blah blah blah, and then it's like M responds with yes on the other side of the other line, and it's described as yes, says the man that Bond, from the voice of the man that Bond loves and obeys, or whatever. Like, you know, that utmost respect he has for M. So yeah, it's just been really, it's been a lot of fun doing the Bond stuff. And I finished what's the second Warren Ellis Bond? Edelon. I finished that one, and I started
totally kills a dude in the elevator, and he's like smiling.
Yeah, he kills a guy. Yeah, he smiles a lot in that one. But I started Hammerhead too, and Hammerhead's great because I love the Warren Ellis stuff. He finally changes his suit. He's in the same suit for the entire 2 volumes, which is fine. But by page 2, he's changed his suit, and then by issue 2, he's in a tuxedo. And Hammerhead, I'm really enjoying because that feels like Andy Diggle just dove into like movie Bond. And Warren Ellis' stuff, you know, he deals, I think, a lot more the literary Bond.
Yeah.
And
honestly, Andy Diggle, I mean, they brought him back for, he's currently doing Kill Chain right now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I love the Warren Ellis stuff, but Hammerhead right now is probably my favorite that I'm reading out of the 3 right now. It's just the artist, I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but...
is it Jason Marsters?
No, for the Warren Ellis. Yeah, his stuff's great. His action is incredible. There's some issues that are like half of them are silent, and just him going in and taking people out. And boy, does he love blowing people's heads off in that book. And you know, the little nod to Felix Leiter, like you see him a little bit, and that's another thing too in the literary Bond world is that friendship is like fucking solid as oak, man. Like, and I enjoy that so much because you always get hints of it in the movies, but you never really feel like it. I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why License to Kill is my favorite Bond too, is because it's the closest you get to their friendship, which I know a lot is taken from Live and Let Die. But there's this, you know, early on in Live and Let Die, the novel, they're separated and kind of beaten up, and Bond thinks that Leiter might be dead, and Leiter thinks Bond might be dead, and they share a phone conversation back at the hotel, and it's this very kind of like, I just rewatched the movie I Love You Man recently. It was very much like that, where like they were so happy to hear each other's voices. You know, these professional killers, these professional agents. You know, the representing the American and the British. You know, kind of espionage.
And James Robinson did the
who's
been on the show.
Yeah,
did the Felix Leiter miniseries.
I need to get that one. That's all collected. I had it in single issues, but I like to get the hardcover. Because those are just lights to put on the shelf, you know.
I had somebody come up to the booth this past New York, and they were like, John Wick, because there's a John Wick comic now, and I was like, Dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, no, I need to know where it is. I was like, Dynamite. They're the ones who publish it. And he's like,
he thought you were going like, Dynamite, man. That John Wick is dynamite, man.
Dynamite.
Oh, like we would get people that were like, why don't you have any like Deadpool? And I'm like, the Marvel booth's right behind.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. They're like, where's your Wolverine?
Yeah.
I got your Wolverine right here, buddy.
Yeah.
I felt bad. I went up to Boom, and I asked if they had the new Hack Slash vs. Vampirella. And as soon as the guy was like, I don't think we do, I was like, oh fuck, that's Dynamite. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah, I actually talked to Tim Seeley.
I never had an opportunity to go see him. I walked past his booth at Artist Alley, but it was always swamped, and I was like,
he came to me,
yeah,
which is to say the Image booth.
Yeah, should have just invited him back on the show.
Yeah,
to be a permanent co-host.
Yeah, I need to. Maybe I'll talk to him in Seattle. Yeah, and be like, hey man, good work on Green Lanterns, I presume, because the first issue isn't out yet. But
it's the pluperfect future tense.
Yeah. By March, I'll know, and so will he.
And maybe we can have him on around that time.
Yeah, have a DC. Yeah, you know, I'm in the process of talking to people about coming on for an X-Men book.
Woo!
And I'm in the process of talking to Boom for our first Boom interview. Nice. It's somebody that I've wanted to get on the show, kind of selfishly because of our shared background for a while. And if you know my racial background, there's not many.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you can probably figure out who it is.
I think you and I talked to him at Awesome Con like 2 years ago.
New York Special Edition.
Was it New York Special Edition?
Yeah, the special, the second to last one before they moved up to Pier 94.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, so yeah, thanks again to Sean and Caitlin for coming on the show. Again, Coyotes is out in comic book stores everywhere on Wednesday, November 8th. This has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I'm Jake.
Fried chicken.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bana.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.